Welcome to Vigilant News for December 16th, 2021. I'm Justin, founder of Stillness in the Storm, and I'm joined by my co-host Ryan Delarme from Underground Newswire. Ryan, how's it going?
It's going well, Justin. Thank you for asking.
We're going to continue our coverage today with the Ghislaine Maxwell, which prosecution started today, and some very interesting things happened there that you're definitely going to want to see. We also have the Nancy Pelosi admission about insider trading. Although it didn't necessarily seem apparent, there were some things revealed there that you're definitely going to want to know about. And we also have a story about Ron DeSantis launching the Stop Woke Act, which is an excellent thing to get inspired about. The fight for freedom is being waged, and I think we're winning. Before we get into that, don't forget to go to the links in the description. We got a special promotion today. The very top, if you go to the link, Ascent Nutrition, use promo code Justin10, that's Justin10, you can save 10% off your entire order. That means you could order a whole bunch of items and save a boatload of money. It's a really good deal. You're only going to get this once, so definitely take advantage. There's lots of awesome products on there. You can also support us by going to stillnessinthestorm.com/donate, where you can find the links to our one-time donation page and the subscribe star where you can subscribe and become a member. So thank you so much for your support. And with that, let's get into our first story today. Ryan, what do you got for us?
Well, it was the, what is it now, like the 12th day of the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, something like that. At this point, I'm just counting the weeks because who knows how long it's going to go on for. I'm going to read off of my article so I don't stumble over my words like a jackass. All right. So the Ghislaine Maxwell trial has resumed today after a 3-day pause. I don't know why the pause happened, but this was the first day this week that they've been on trial. So the prosecution rested its case last Friday after calling nearly 24 witnesses, including 4 accusers who detailed their alleged abuse at the hands of Epstein and Maxwell. In court papers filed earlier this week, Maxwell's attorney said that they are hoping to call the attorneys for 3 of Maxwell's accusers in to question them about their statements that they had made previously to federal investigators. As far as I know, this is yet to have been, it's not decided. They're still awaiting the final decision by the judge. So the defense's first witness, the prosecution has rested their case. So now the defense is up. Their first witness was one Simberly Espinoza, who is a former employee of Jeffrey Epstein. Espinoza was hired by the dead sex offender in '96 and worked as an executive assistant for Maxwell. She worked for Maxwell for about 6 years and told the jury that she looked up to the accused, madam. I highly respected Ghislaine, Espinoza testified. I looked up to her very much. Espinoza, 55, said that the British socialite was Jeffrey Epstein's property manager, and that she learned a lot from her demanding boss over their years working together. Much like the rest of Epstein's well-taken care of employees, Espinoza denied ever seeing Maxwell or Epstein engage in inappropriate activity with underage girls. So it's continuing this trend of former Epstein employees who were given, property, Jaguars, things like this.
Right.
People who have little to no incentive to flip on these people that were their bosses. We're keeping them, hush, like keeping things quiet for them, and may very well be implicated in some of this stuff. So, I don't think that us taking these former employees' word for it is necessarily wise.
I completely agree. Yeah, they have a big incentive not to tell the truth.
And as you mentioned before, they could have been friends with Epstein. So, even if everything is true, I guess I'm trying to, maybe you could elaborate on this from a psychological standpoint, but even like a most terrible person you could think of, if you are close to that person and like have shared good memories and have opened your heart to them, you might still stick up for them. You know what I mean? Because you see them differently than the rest of the world who only knows about the case and everything that happened. I'm not trying to say that, we should all love Jeffrey Epstein and condone his behavior, but I'm just saying from their perspective, I could see, former employees standing tall, so to speak, and,
especially somebody that can, it's not like they're working for McDonald's. They're working for a guy who's got high level people walking in and out of his life all the time. So for all intents and purposes, if you're working for Epstein, you're working for a demigod, and the level of fear associated with ratting on that person is going to be very high, possibly because you did witness people's lives get ruined for not doing the right thing with respect to protecting these people. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons we can put on the table just now, and there's probably dozens others we don't even know about.
Yeah. So that was the first witness that the defense called. We had very little other than those few quotes. That's all I really could find. There's obviously she testified for an hour at least, so there's a lot more to it, but I haven't been unable to find that. Our access code to call into the court has routinely been denied, so we're having to take other reports for people who are actually there seeing it firsthand. So the next person that the defense called is interesting, and we have a kind of a direct connection to her, but not, I mean, maybe like 4 degrees of separation, which is interesting. So this next witness is a false memory expert named Elizabeth Loftus. And just a little side note, we are currently working on an expose about this woman and the foundation that she's connected to. Our dear friend Charles, who, if you are watch our live streams regularly, you know that he passed away last week. Well, he's actually been engaged in a couple decades long lawsuits with this foundation. So we have a pretty big bombshell story in regards to this woman who just took the stand today in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial.
Yeah.
More on that in the future. So Loftus, a professor at the University of California, Irvine, has been called to the stand in some 300 trials since 1975. She's usually called by defense attorneys, almost always called by defense attorneys. I think there was one case of her showing up for the prosecution and not the defense. She shows up in an attempt to raise doubts about the accounts of the accusers, me being a false memory expert. Seems like when you don't have a good defense, you bring in a lady to just completely discredit their memories as if they're not real. So you got the thought police, and now you have the memory police, pretty much.
Yep.
So Loftus has consulted or testified in the cases of scores of high-profile defendants, including Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, Michael Jackson, O.J. Simpson, and Robert Durst, to name a few. So also Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy, yeah. Yeah, that's the one that was like, whoa, what?
Right. So they broke for lunch, and then after lunch, they had the prosecution was allowed to do a cross-examination. It was Laura Pomerantz and not Maureen Comey. She grilled the defense's expert witness over the fact that she's only ever testified for the prosecution one time out of 150 cases. She also brought up a 1991 book that Loftus wrote titled Witness for the Defense. And here are some quotes. Quote, "You wrote a book called Witness for the Defense," Pomerantz asked. "Yes," Loftus replied. "You haven't written a book called Impartial Witness, right?" "No," Loftus said. So, I mean, you can take that for whatever it's worth. Now, unfortunately, that's all we were able to glean today as far as the case went. I'm sure more will trickle out when some of the people who were there release their coverage, and we will update you on all that as it comes out, and we'll be just continuing to cover this from day to day.
I think it's pretty revealing that Elizabeth Loftus was brought forward. Like you were saying, she's somebody who appears to be used in many different ways. I don't want to spoil some of the things we have coming, but you know, what we've got coming is pretty damn explosive. Like, I know I use that word a lot, so it's like, yeah, whatever, Justin. But in this case, it's actually really explosive. Like, I don't necessarily know if there's anyone else talking about this, so we might get the opportunity to break a story, which would be pretty cool. But the nature, the seedy underbelly of the lengths at which these cabal pedophiles go to suppress their victims, to further victimize them through lack of acknowledgement, to even convince them that all their memories and experiences are false.
Talk about gaslighting.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally, I would argue it's gaslighting at a professional industrial scale level. So it's really massive. What
military grade gaslighting.
Yeah, it's awful. So yeah, that's going to be coming soon. So there wasn't necessarily anything major with respect to big people mentioned today. But the fact that they have to have this woman come out means that they basically have no defense. Now, we have a big trial happening here. And for the first time, possibly, this massive gaslight machine that has been churning for at least 25 years, because that's how long Loftus has been doing this for, or I'm sorry, 45 years, could be exposed in a big way. And again, this is all going to help us fight the big fight for freedom, because this battle is far bigger than Ghislaine Maxwell.
And that's all I got for the trial today.
Okay. Well, why don't we go ahead and hop into, you want to do the Pelosi one next?
No, I'd say let's hear about DeSantis. I'm interested.
All right. Well, before we get into that, don't forget to check the link in the description for Ascent Nutrition. Again, there's a big opportunity you have here with Justin10, the promo code Justin10. You're going to be able to save 10% on your first order. So that means you can order 10 items and you could save as much as $100, $150, depending on how much you're spending.
I'd say go for $10,000. You'll save $1,000.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So definitely check that out. Seriously, we got our pine pollen a couple days ago. The stuff, it tastes amazing. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting like, this kind of like sandy texture, but it actually tastes really good, surprisingly. And it feels good. I have this like natural kind of like energetic buzz from it. So
yeah, I really expected it to be kind of like, maybe possibly gross, but it's like almost no flavor, and the little bit of flavor there is kind of nice.
Yeah,
so you instantly feel good after eating it.
Mm-hmm. It's really awesome, and it helps with wink wink, the things we're dealing with right now,
the pokes.
So let's go ahead and talk about DeSantis. For those of you who don't know, DeSantis might be one of the best governors we might have ever had. He's just so good. He has ability to fight the COVID situation for almost 2 years now, because we've almost been in this COVID insanity for 2 years, which is crazy in and of itself, has been prolific. He's not only is that, but he's fighting critical race theory, which might be the most insidious agenda for division of a population that has happened in the past 20 years.
Yeah, he's doing it without fear too. But another thing is he's probably the only Republican that could give Donald Trump a run for his money in 2024.
That's right. And there's even rumors that he and DeSantis will actually be on the same ticket in 2024. So what we have here is a video of DeSantis introducing the Stop Woke Act, and he says that CRT is an elite-driven phenomenon. Let's go ahead and listen to that clip real quick. Oh, wow, this is 49 minutes. Okay, well just listen to a little bit of it.
We've got a lot of great folks. For the introduction. We have a number of people in my administration, Simone Marsteller, professor. So we want all our students to understand why was our country founded? What were some of the key ideas that made us different? I mean, for example, our founding fathers said that we are endowed by our creator with unalienable rights. The rights do not come from government.
Yeah, standing applause.
So these are natural rights, and we create a constitutional system not to give us rights, but to protect the rights that we already have. And we have a constitutional system that's laid out, and not just having a judiciary, an executive, a legislature, but also having 50 state governments and federalism and all these different things put into place in places like San Francisco and these other places where they don't prosecute people stealing things out of the stores. So they want Congress now to come in and say, hey, stop the smash and grabs. Well, they're partially responsible for creating an environment by having these people elected to office.
That's right. So unfortunately, I don't have a little condensed clip for you, but essentially what he revealed in this, and I only caught glimpses of it, was the whole basis, or a good chunk of the basis, for why DeSantis, or why critical race theory needs to be dismantled. And the Stop Woke Act is going to help do that. So let's read a little bit about it. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis introduced legislation Wednesday in an effort to crack down on teaching of critical race theory and other woke ideology in schools and places of employment, urging his state will not tolerate the elite-driven phenomenon of cultural Marxism. As he spoke about the bill, called the Stop Wrongs to Our Kids and Employees Act, Stop Woke Act, oh, nice, DeSantis noted, quote, "We want all our students to understand why our country was founded. What were some of the key ideas that made us different?" Adding that core rights do not come from government. The governor continued, I think what you see now with the rise of woke ideology is an attempt to really delegitimize our history and delegitimize our institutions. And I view the wokeness as cultural Marxism, DeSantis added to rapturous applause. So, it doesn't, probably a lot of people are watching this wondering why we need to do this, but it's extremely important. There's a lot of insidious narratives out there that are attempting to undermine the core fabric of the United States and our country. And, there's a reason why so many governments have modeled themselves after the United States. Is because we have the objectively best system of government. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying it in terms of like, rah, rah, United States, like this is my team. Although I do have pride for my country.
Absolutely.
What I'm saying is that with respect to the basis of what makes a government the most pure and freeing and actually objectively beneficial, is that it acknowledges, one, where rights come from, which is God. Two, that government does not give rights to people, that government was created by, of, and for the people to defend their rights. And three, that the truth and history is extremely important. Right now, we have a situation where critical race theory, the Lincoln Project, various other agendas, Black Lives Matter, are trying to destabilize and undermine all of that, because there's a much older and insidious agenda of socialism that is attempting to destabilize the world and our freedoms as we know it. So what Ron DeSantis is doing now, I would argue, is taking one of the first decisive blows against this cultural Marxism, and it needs to happen. We need to, not just sit back and hope that somebody does something. We actually need to defend our rights and our culture in a positive way, and this is the tip of the spear.
I think that's a great point, Justin. You mentioned patriotism, and I know a lot of people, myself included, have been conditioned to, think that America is the cause of all the world's problems. But the reality is, no matter even how deep your programming runs, as far as that's concerned, you're never going to fix the country you live in if you don't love it. So you would be hard pressed to find this country out there in the wide world that doesn't have some kind of murky history. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Things that the people probably regret. But, acting like they never happened or trying to erase them is not what's going to keep us from repeating those mistakes.
Precisely. Yeah. We need to get away from the let's make ourselves feel good by rewriting history to suit our needs, and let's bend ourselves to the truth and embrace the saving power of truth. And I think we can get a lot accomplished. So yeah.
Maybe you won't get as many likes on your Instagram posts, but you'd be doing the right thing.
That's true. Exactly. So more we'll be covering about this, no doubt, soon. And if you're interested in a little bit of why the United States is so objectively beneficial, in the last stream we did, the big stream from the 9th, we had the tail end, about a half hour before it ends, I covered a Urantia book paper that discusses the government of heaven, basically. And the government of heaven is a representative government. So there's a lot we can glean from this. I'll probably be doing more on this in the future because it's so vitally important. And I want to give people the real know-how. It's not just the United States is awesome and you should love your country. There's actual reasons, there's arguments, there's a scientific basis, we might say, to why these things are important. And if we know those, then no socialist can take that away from us. It's very important. All right, well, with that, let's get to our next story, which is about Madam Pelosi.
Yeah, so DC's most notorious skeletal swamp witch has been in the news a lot these last few days for a variety of reasons. I'm talking, of course, of Nancy Pelosi, who seems to have gone back on her promise to Democrats that she wouldn't run in 2022. 4 years ago, Roll Call reported the following. Under an agreement reached with 7 Democrats who opposed her speaker bid, Pelosi will back term limits for the top 3 Democratic leaders. The limit she has agreed to will prevent her from serving as a speaker beyond another 4 years. And of course, this was 4 years ago. Yet CNN reported Sunday evening, quote, Speaker Pelosi will stay until at least after the midterm elections, extending her nearly 20-year run as the House's top Democrat after she turns 82 and perhaps beyond. She is planning to file and run for re-election in her San Francisco shithole district next year, at least for now. In keeping with her pattern of deciding about staying in Congress after the elections, she will likely have won an 18th full term.
Wow.
So now, like, this battered old ghoul is even older than the old Crow minority leader, Mitch McConnell, which is not, a great claim to fame, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
So why stay? Well, it could have something to do with her apparent desire to save the country from the likes of Donald Trump, which, his popularity is only, rising exponentially since this Biden administration kicked off. But it might also have something to do with a little thing called insider trading. So last week, Underground Newswire ran a piece about something like 14 members of Congress violating the Stock Act. And I think it's actually a lot more than that. A new report has found that 14 members of Congress have been violating the Stock Act and handle their finances in a way that, quote, could expose them to ethical problems. Among those named in the report were such seemingly everlasting establishment puppets such as Dianne Feinstein and Pat Fallon, among others. Actually, I saw in a clip that somebody mentioned there was a lot more than that. So.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward to Monday, where Pelosi voiced her opinions on the matter at a press conference. Like many others in Congress, Pelosi and her husband, Paul Pelosi, a San Francisco real estate investment mogul, have poured tons of money into the stock market and profited millions off of shares largely staked in big tech stocks, particularly Alphabet, Google's parent company. So when you hear about technocracy and big tech actually influencing how American politics function, you've got people like Feinstein and Pelosi, like, tits deep in this stuff. Like, to act like there isn't conspiracy, it's just like denying reality, really. Mm-hmm. So, so that's all I got on that. There's a clip that we could play if you think it's
I actually got it pulled up right here.
All right,
Madam Speaker, Insider just completed a 5-month investigation finding that 49 members of Congress and 182 senior congressional staffers have violated the Stock Act, the insider trading law. I'm wondering if you have any reaction to that. And secondly, should members of Congress and their spouses be banned from trading individual stocks while serving in Congress?
No, I don't know to this second one. We have a responsibility to report in the stock. On the stuff, but I'm not familiar with that 5-month review, but if people aren't reporting, they should be. Because this is a free market and we're a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
Because that's how I make all my millions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, first thing, I don't know if people caught it, but there is a responsibility, and we have to check on this. So I'm working off of what we just saw in the video. The reporter said, isn't there a compulsion as a sitting member of Congress to report your trading activities? And she's like, oh, well, yeah, maybe, I guess, I don't know. That's really revealing right there. She's trying to plead ignorance. I'm sure she knows about it. And if she doesn't know about it, then she's negligent. So either way, she's dug herself a pretty nasty hole right there.
And this is the highest ranking Democrat in Congress. So she should know this, especially if she's been there for like 100 years.
Exactly. And the second thing is that insider trading is a major problem for sure. It's obviously not reported on that much, and it's not necessarily clear to the average person, like, why being a member of Congress comes with such a necessity to have a decent moral backbone. But it's because you are in a position where you are going to have access to industry moguls and know the legal landscape, which is going to affect businesses tremendously. I mean, if you think about what Trump was doing with his Twitter account, and this is not the only one who was doing this, he was posting things on Twitter about the economy, about the China trade war, and it was having a direct effect on markets. So if you know about these things, if you know that and the bill is about to come out that's, for example, going to dump trillions of dollars into infrastructure and Green New Deal, don't you think you as a congressperson could potentially buy stocks that would explode in money? Now, here's another thing. Weren't there people that had bought stocks that went explosive once the COVID pandemic happened?
Yes, like I want to say 2 weeks before it happened.
That's right. That is insider trading. So what they are doing is they are taking advantage of their know-how in the position, their what we might say a position of trust in government, and taking advantage of that to the extent that they can make millions off of these deals, if not have other influences that give them profound advantages that we, the people, don't get the opportunity to have. Meanwhile, the average person has to work like a dog to get barely any money to survive, while Pelosi can buy a few stocks when it suits her and when she has insider knowing and information, and make a lot of money. And the corrupt politicians, this is not new. They've been doing this for a long time. Like you said, there was 15, I think, that were discovered recently.
Well, I saw 14, but if you listen to the guy in that clip, he says like
100 something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, 100 something members of the government. I don't know if it was Congress, but
right.
You know who I'm proud of though?
Mm.
As you were saying, like you can make money off of this, say, Green New Deal that's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the Congress members who actually is like pushing to like set these limits on like what you can and can't do regarding trading is AOC. Of all people.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I was surprised to see that.
Yeah.
Maybe she just didn't get invited to the Insiders Club, and maybe she's a little pissed off. Who knows?
Just the optics too, you know.
It could be. I kind of get the impression that AOC is just a useful idiot. Like she was baited, and this is one thing about the cabal, the way they work is they are experts at taking people with certain intentions and beliefs, positioning, we might say, plants around them to then start to drip in ideas that steer that person, because of their beliefs and their ideology, towards an end that the cabal can use for their agenda.
Right.
So AOC might be one of those people. I happen to think Bernie Sanders is probably somebody like that. So,
well, you know that they don't want him in because they rigged the primaries against him twice. So
they'll use him as a pawn to advance their agenda.
Right.
And
that's the role they would rather have him in, I'm sure.
Exactly. So these guys are experts at manipulating people. So I digress. So the main point is that we have what might be one of the most glaring admissions of insider trading and the negligent aspect of the speaker, who, as you said, is the highest ranking member of Congress. So if anybody should know the rules and adhere to them, it should be Pelosi, and she's not doing it. Why? Because she's making God knows how much money behind the scenes using her insider knowledge to do insider trading. And that's a major problem.
And they were able to get away with this for decades. So, I mean, to her, it's probably just another day in the life. But now you've got so many people, especially the now booming independent media, like actually watching and following every little thing that these people do. It's like you can't get away with nothing.
Exactly. You know, this is one of the reasons why owning land or being married has been an essential aspect of participating in government since the Carolingian Empire of the 800s. And, you know, some people, especially in the modern age, were like, oh, well, it's just white men who owned land and how horrible that is. Well, part of the reason why is that when you own land, when you have established yourself to the extent that you're not trying to scramble to get money, then you can be better trusted with assets and wealth of a nation. This is why Donald Trump was such a good candidate for president, and his ability to exercise trust and maintain the interests of the people so exemplary. By that, I mean, he's somebody who already made his billions. He wasn't there to make money and produce a bunch of shady deals with people behind the scenes. He was there to actually serve and protect the interests of the American people, which is exactly what any elected official should be doing. So when you have the ability to what's called essentially take an oath of poverty, a vow of poverty, excuse me, that doesn't mean that you're literally going to be poor. What it means is that you're not going to use your position and influence to gain undue wealth and take advantage of your position in your office. That's exactly what Trump was trying to do. And I'm sure he did do. Believe me, or I would wager that if there was any dirt on Trump misusing his office in an insider trading capacity, we would know about it. Trust me.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, I really was shocked to hear that admission actually happened on the part of Pelosi, but I'm also happy because it's going to start to reveal yet another thing that has been long happening behind the scenes that people just don't know of. Unfortunately, we have a population that has been dumbed down to the extent that people can commit crimes right in front of them and they don't even realize it. Yeah. But now it's becoming a lot harder to do that because we have a lot more truth being revealed in many different ways.
I was going to say, if you guys like this insider trading kind of stuff, let us know, because then we can maybe whip up something about the what was recently discovered about insider trading occurring 2 weeks before COVID officially became, you know, a thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a big story right there. Another interesting example. I mean, we had just, what was it, yesterday that we reported that Moderna and NIAIH something. Yeah, they were conducting research on mRNA vaccines years before COVID. You know, that is a form of insider trading. When you're going to manipulate an event like COVID and have that go out, and then you're developing a solution for the very problem you know is right around the corner, you don't think that they could make money off of that? Absolutely not. They're making boatloads of money and they're taking advantage of people in the process, and it's disgusting and it needs to stop.
And oddly enough, most of these people who are making money off of the whole COVID thing and the insider trading happen to be China sympathizers. So
this is socialist paradise of China somehow just needs all this money. What is the George Carlin skit? He's got, you know, all powerful, all wise, but he just can't manage money. It's kind of like China. Like China, it's a utopia, it's a socialist paradise, but they need money. They need to enslave people. They need to do all these horrible things. Kind of sounds like BS, if you ask me. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is all we have for you this evening. Keep an eye out for the story we're going to be working on here about Elizabeth Loftus, probably one of the most insidious people you can imagine. And a special shout out to Barbara for all of the support you've been giving us about all that. And of course, Charles's work. Deeply grateful for that.
Couldn't be doing it without him.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. Please check the description for the sale. Again, Ascent Nutrition, use promo code Justin10. That's Justin10 to save 10% off your first order. Make sure you put a lot in there so you can save as much as you can. And you can also support us by going to stillnessinthestorm.com/donate. And lastly, if you like this, please like, share, and subscribe. Get this information out because we're getting shadow banned like crazy. I just had another email come from somebody who said, hey, I can't share your work. Your emails are telling, you know, I went to your website and it said it's a phishing site. Yeah, well, that's because they don't want people to go to our website. So, but you know about it. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for watching, everybody. With that, we will see you for tomorrow's show, which will be a little bit earlier than normal. Take care.